Oh, it's another happy day because Fumblegate is live.
Live,
damn it.
In your living room or at your office or wherever you happen to be.
In the office, on the road, it doesn't matter.
I hope you're not watching us on YouTube on the road, but you could listen on the road.
That's correct. Bluetooth it through your car. If you happen to be on the road, mute your computer.
Mute your computer, dummy.
Yes, we don't need the reverb. And, be safe about it, but listen to Fumblegate. I'm Jason. That's Adam. Twitter handles, I'm at Jason Grefer. The show is at Fumblegate, and I'm setting these out this week instead of telling you to look at the bottom. That way, if you are traveling and you can't necessarily watch, we want you to be safe. Adam, your Twitter?
At Fumblegate Fatty.
Okay, so make sure you get involved in the social media there. Facebook.com/Fumblegate. Throw us a like on the Facebook and leave a funny meme or something on our Facebook page.
Yeah, funny, not unfunny ones, because we get some unfunny ones sometimes too.
Yeah, we like the funny ones. And what is funny? Well, we'll throw you a like or the laughing emoji or whatever the hell they call it now.
Yeah, I think it looks like an emoji, but I think it's an actual the name for it. There's a Facebook name for whatever it is, but
yeah,
we'll go with emoji for now.
More Zuckerberg cash.
Yeah, just making the money.
Yeah, because he doesn't have enough. A lot to get to today.
We got a lot. We got paper for days.
Yeah, paper for days. Sorry.
Lots of kickers, too. Kickers did not disappoint this week.
Oh, my gosh. You've got a bunch of them.
I know, and I only went with 4 because I figured I could sit here all day and go with more than 4, but I only ended up going with 4.
Yeah, including, there's
a surprise winner this week, by the way. Surprise winner. Like, you never, the Vegas odds on this winner were probably 1 to 10,000. Well,
so we got that. We'll talk a little bit about the Punch Face Bowl that's tonight.
Oh, God.
So I threw that in there because I knew that would just make you just so happy.
Well, it's relevant because we're going to talk about one-loss teams here, but the Punch Face Bowl.
We'll talk a little bit later when we talk about college football in the back half of the show, how it is to win on the road when you don't have air conditioning in your locker room.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've probably dealt with some kind of conditions like that.
Yeah, we'll talk about a little visiting locker room stuff, and I didn't visit a whole bunch of visiting locker rooms.
But you've seen
there's some out there, and I got some good stories for you. So you guys listen in for those.
But before we get to there, we're going to talk about the NFL in the first half of the show, and we won't do a big-time recap of Week 1 because you all know what happened in Week 1. The biggest thing that happened relating to it was all this Antonio Brown stuff. And
it's continuing the biggest story of the offseason,
yes,
really.
It just doesn't stop. You know, he gets cut by the Raiders. Then a video gets posted of him dancing like he just won the lottery because he got cut by the Raiders, which makes him further look like an ass clown. Shout out Chris Jericho for the ass clown thing and a little bit of the bubbly. And
Chris Jericho.
So we thank you for that, sir, for coming up with both of those. And so then, of course, you knew it was coming. As soon as he's cut, an hour later, it's announced he signed with New England. So,
unsurprisingly,
of course,
Bill Belichick races to the phone to sign Bill Belichick or to sign Antonio Brown. Very low risk contract.
They gave him some guaranteed money.
They gave him some guarenteed money, but a very low risk contract for a high reward.
So things are getting going there, and then he now has some legal issue. A former trainer is now suing him for sexual assault. So now he has litigation in front of him. He's already denied the claims through his agent, Drew Rosenhaus. There's talk like he's just going to countersue.
By the way, another ass clown, by the way, Drew Rosenhaus is.
Bum. Does what he has to do, and is more than willing to put himself out there to address things. But this is a mess, and it continues to be a mess, and which I think a lot of people figure if you're gonna try and rectify yourself and clean up a mess, you go to New England to do it, but there's only so much they can do. Now that he has an off the field matter going on and a sexual assault lawsuit brought on by a former trainer, right? No laughing matter at all. So now the NFL and the Patriots have both disclosed that they didn't know about any of this before he was signed by the Patriots, and then the league officially cleared him to join the roster. So now the question is, what do you do here? The league is going to meet with Antonio Brown's accuser to try and get some more details on what happened. But
they're going to meet with her. They're going to meet with him. They're going to sit down and talk about that first. Obviously, the legal proceedings have to go through as well.
Is there any way New England can play him with this while this is going on?
I think they can. I mean, I don't know. Like, if the NFL says he can play, there's no reason he can't. It's not a situation where if he plays and then something happens after the fact, they can't go back and make them like forfeit the game. So if he plays, there's no harm to New England by playing him other than the eye of public opinion. But like as far as the league itself goes, it's not going to hurt them as far as, again, like forfeiting a game after the fact because he plays. The court of public opinion is going to hurt them if indeed this obviously comes out to be true. Even if it's not true, it's still, you're going to have people that are going to be upset about the situation because the legal proceedings have not been finalized. And understandably so, I get it. Like, obviously, if he's guilty of this, then he needs to be prosecuted or whatever the ramifications legally that can happen need to happen. Now, I will say this, and I hate doubting accusers, but it's a very interesting timing for this to come out. There's rumor of, well, she wanted him to invest in a business. He didn't want to invest in a business, and now she's, rather than pressing charges against him in the legal system, she's suing him over his conduct. It is interesting timing, and I'm not doubting the woman because obviously I want to see this play out, and I never want to doubt sexual allegations. But it's going to be very interesting how this plays out, how New England deals with it. He practiced this week. They are preparing as if he's going to play on Sunday. It will be interesting to see where it goes from here once the league meets with both he and his accuser. But yeah, it's just to add to all the AB drama, obviously with the, forcing the trade to the Raiders and then forcing them to cut him. It is interesting. One thing that I talk about, I coach with a guy who's from Boston. He's still got a thick Boston accent. He hasn't lived there in 30 years, but he's a huge Boston fan. And we joked with him about buying him an AB jersey because he's not a big AB fan. But it's very interesting, and we may never know, but was Antonio Brown playing chess the entire time while the rest of the league played checkers? Did he force the trade and then in turn knew that New England was waiting for him if he could get out of the Raiders deal? Because we know when Pittsburgh traded him away, we knew Pittsburgh was not going to trade them to a team that they could potentially face in the AFC.
Well, New England called and they balked because they wouldn't trade. They didn't want to trade him there.
Apparently, New England offered them a first-round draft pick, and they balked at the trade. They would not trade him to an AFC opponent because they didn't want to face him again in the playoffs.
An AFC contender.
An AFC contender. They didn't want to trade him within the division because they didn't want to play him 2 times a year, which understandably so. This is common amongst teams. This isn't unique. But maybe Drew Rosenhaus and Antonio Brown were playing the game a little bit better than we thought because it all kind of worked out where he ended up where they wanted to trade for him initially, obviously offering a first-round draft pick, and he ends up on a team that they thought wanted him initially. He ends up there anyway, and for a cheaper price. Because no longer the $30 million guaranteed. They're only owing him $9 million guaranteed with up to $15 million total. Now, I did read that they have an out. If he doesn't play all the 15 games going forward, then that money gets cut significantly as well. He has to play in all of the games this season for most of that money to even kick in. So it's really cheap for them if this works out.
To make up for that, they did add a team option onto next year where if he's on the roster next year, he's guaranteed $20 million, which tells you he won't be on the roster next year.
Probably not. Not at that price. They're going to make him rework it. If he's going to stay, they're going to make him rework that money for sure.
With everything that's involved, I don't know how you can go ahead and play him. I'm sure that the league and the Patriots are trying to scramble to get as much information as they can before they make a decision before the Patriots play on Sunday afternoon so that they can make the best informed decision and don't have to put egg on their face one way or another, whether it's proven these allegations are true or false. They got to make the best decision for themselves. And so I think because of that, I think in this day and age especially, where it's guilty until proven innocent, and I'm not here to speak on the allegations of what happened. The timing is interesting of it, but again, you wouldn't think that allegations like this would be made if there wasn't at least some kind of merit to them.
They are oddly specific. The allegations, if you haven't read them, they're oddly specific.
Sure.
Like, obviously, maybe a little too specific. I don't know. I'm not a prosecutor. I'm not going to be involved in making any decision on this case. The only thing I can say is the timing of it is odd. The allegations are oddly specific, and the timing of when she's willing to meet with the NFL. I don't know. Again, I hate to minimize the allegations, but it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And obviously, the court of public opinion has already begun to speak. The league is going to make a decision based on whether or not he's going to be eligible to play, based on their meeting with her and him and any other parties that may be involved. But there is no criminal case at stake here. This is purely a civil case. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
It's one of those situations to where, at least in my view, if you're serious about this and you want to say that this is bigger than the game of football, then you have to hold him out. And like I said, whether it's these claims proven to be factual or not, and like Adam said, this is just a civil case. It is not a criminal case. She did not choose to file charges against Antonio Brown, but if you want to show the message, especially with New England in the way they handled the Josh Gordon situation, to where they did send him away. He left and they sent him away, and they did support him. He had obviously other issues involved. Nothing like this with Brown, but I don't know that you can take it a different route than holding him out, because what kind of message does that send?
Well, again, court of public opinion.
Josh Gordon has had his long documented issues with substances, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is that he's had issues with. He's continued to have issues with it, and they allowed him to go away to get help. This matter is extremely serious, and I think if you want to be shown that you are taking this thing seriously and that you're trying to get his act cleaned up, you have to hold him out. Because if he's allowed to play with these allegations overhead, to me, in a way, you're kind of enabling him to continue being the way he is. Yeah. Knowing that he has this lawsuit hanging over his head, you're basically still saying, well, as long as you can produce for us, we can handle that, after the fact.
Yeah,
so, it's very complicated.
It is very complicated, tough. And again, because of everything that's happened with the on-field drama, essentially now the off-field drama added to it, the court of public opinion is speaking loudly, and not a lot of people are fans of Antonio Brown right now. And like you said, they're really going to have to make a decision of what's more important. Is winning football games more important, or is letting this process play out and finding out what actually happened more important, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do. But again, they're preparing like he's going to play on Sunday, so we'll see. We'll see if the league makes the decision. If the league, suspends him under the personal conduct policy, regardless of the result of the investigation, and if they just decided to suspend him under the personal conduct policy, and Roger Goodell just makes an arbitrary decision and suspends him for whatever.
He's done it before, even without a criminal case.
Yeah, but he's done it before without a criminal case, so we'll see what happens. But again, they're preparing like he's going to play, and it looked like everything was going to work out and everything was going to be a good fit, and Antonio Brown was on his way to possibly competing for an AFC Championship in the Super Bowl. But obviously, with the latest drama, we will see what's going to happen.
All right, let's move on from that, and let's get to more on the field related things, and. We continue to talk. Go ahead. There you go.
There it is.
There it is.
Antonio Brown driving me to drink. Former Chippewa too. It hurts my heart a little bit. Hurts my heart.
There's ongoing eyes on the Dallas Cowboys for a lot of reasons. America's team.
They are the most popular team in the NFL.
Yeah, just ask Jerry Jones. He'll tell you. They've already paid Ezekiel Elliott. Next on the docket is Dak Prescott. Jerry Jones said this week contract extension's imminent. Then he backed off of that and said, well, you understand what I mean by imminent, or something to that effect. So for reasons I don't know, Carson Palmer has been making the rounds this week in the media. I don't know if he's got like a book out he's promoting, or if he's just trying out for a potential future in media. He was on the NFL Network show talking about before the Antonio Brown situation on the field. He didn't think it would work out. He's dealt with diva receivers before himself.
Yeah, he had a nice one here in Cincinnati.
He did. Well, Carson went on a radio station in Dallas, and somebody asked him, "What do you think? What should Dak Prescott do?" And Carson had a very, very interesting take on this. And I know you like him. He's a teammate of yours.
I like Carson Palmer. There's no secret. Carson Palmer is a good person in my mind, but a lot of Cincinnati people disagree for multiple reasons.
This is a very interesting thing what he said. The talk is that Dak Prescott he's gonna get paid
a lot,
and the numbers, the way things are heading, he may be looking at $30-35 million a year.
Apparently, that's the going rate for franchise quarterbacks nowadays. Exactly. It's $30 to $35 million a year, and I don't think Dak Prescott's worth that much, but Carson Palmer has a different idea. Not only does he not think he's worth that much, he thinks he should take a pay cut to stay in Dallas. And Jason's going to read you the quote here.
We'll tell you what we think. Here's what Carson Palmer said to 105.3 FM The Fan in Dallas. If I was him, I would do between a 10 and 15 kind of number and win a bunch of games and a bunch of Super Bowls and make up that money he lost out on by not being one of the top 2 or 3 guys in the league. He'll make that back in endorsements tenfold. I think if he were willing to take a little bit of a price cut, it would enable the team to keep Cooper and continue to pay the guys around him and continue to pay the offensive line. That is what really stirs the pot for them, is that offensive line. This is... Oh, man. I got fired up when I first heard this, because this is hilariously hypocritical from this guy. Given what happened in Cincinnati. And by the way, I agree with why he did what he did to get himself out of Cincinnati. I totally understand why he wanted out of Cincinnati. But to tell another guy to take potentially 1/3 of what he is worth, coming from a guy who made almost $175 million in his career, who famously, as he was trying to get out of Cincinnati, said, "I have $80 million in the bank. I'll never step foot in Paul Brown Stadium again." To tell Dak Prescott, you need to be a team player here and take less to keep the team together is hysterical to me. I get the sentiment. The logic, you can kind of see where he's going. Take a little less to help the team going forward. But you look at this quote once again. Win a bunch of games, win a bunch of Super Bowls. And that's the interesting thing that's a part of this. Where is it a guarantee that you're going to win a bunch of Super Bowls? How the hell would Carson Palmer know about winning a bunch of Super Bowls? Well, what is going to be guaranteed first? That cash or a bunch of Super Bowls?
Well, here's what Carson Palmer does know. He does know owners who aren't investing in their team.
Yes, he does.
Don't want to win Super Bowls.
Absolutely.
That's what he had here in Cincinnati with Mike Brown.
The logic makes sense, but this guy?
Yeah, I think.
I know you're going to defend
it. I think yes, because here's why. The end part of that statement is what makes the most sense.
The offensive line.
But here's you cannot argue that they don't have one of the best offensive lines in football.
Absolutely.
Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, their offensive line is really good, and that's what drives that team. And if you want to pay those guys, you have to take less money. You want to be protected or not.
1/3?
I'm not saying the number's right. I'm saying he needs to take a pay cut. If he wants to keep the team in place and have the opportunity to play for NFC championships and Super Bowls, you have to keep the team largely in place. And we see what happens, what's happening in Houston with the quarterback. Deshaun Watson. I can't remember sometimes. #CTE. Deshaun Watson.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh at that.
Down in Houston, they don't protect Deshaun Watson. And Deshaun Watson, they're a playoff team, even though they can't protect their quarterback. Dallas is only a playoff team if they protect their quarterback. So if you're going to take a bunch of money, give it to your 2 guys in the backfield, but then give nobody to help them run the ball and nobody to protect that quarterback, you're going to be in trouble. All right? We saw what happened in Indianapolis when they didn't protect Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck retired essentially because they did not protect Andrew Luck's best interest for a long time during his career. He was largely unprotected. He took the 4th most hits of any player in the NFL in the last 4 years. Dak Prescott being one of the guys, or I'm sorry, not Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson being one of the guys who's taken more hits than Andrew Luck in the last 4 seasons. If you don't protect your biggest investment with a good offensive line, your biggest investment could do something similar to what Andrew Luck did. Andrew Luck got sick of getting hit. Now, he didn't get hit as much last season, and their sack numbers drastically dropped. But you take a beating as a quarterback who isn't protected by a good offensive line. Dak Prescott doesn't take a lot of unnecessary hits because his offensive line is good. Deshaun Watson takes a bunch of unnecessary hits because his offensive line sucks. Andrew Luck, for a large part of his career, his offensive line sucked. And now he's no longer playing football. So I understand the sentiment of what Carson Palmer is saying. Do I think the $10 to $15 million per year range is the right range?
That's ludicrous.
No, that's ludicrous because I agree with you there. Because there's guys out there who are backups making that amount of money. If you're a starting quarterback in the NFL, you need to be making more than $10 to $15 million a year. But the sentiment of not going for a max contract and leaving money on the table to invest in the guys who are going to protect your livelihood is the right sentiment. And just because it's Carson Palmer saying it, and I know a lot of Cincinnati fans are angry with Carson Palmer because he left the team high and dry. But again, because Mike Brown won't invest in winning a Super Bowl, he never will. He's never going to put all the chips on the table to try and win a Super Bowl. He's just there to collect his money. And I hate to say it, you're never going to win a Super Bowl here in Cincinnati with Mike Brown as the owner. It's never going to happen. But that part I understand why people are angry with what he's saying because of what he did to get himself out of Cincinnati. But the sentiment is correct. Dak Prescott, if they are truly interested in being a successful team, he needs to take a pay cut. He cannot go after a max contract. You can't have the highest paid running back in the NFL. You can't have a top 2 or 3 played quarterback in the NFL and still have the money left over to invest in your very good offensive line when they come up for contract extensions. You just can't do it. You can't. And to be successful in the NFL, you have to. Like, if you look at the last, we did this the other day with our coaching staff. We looked at the last, number of elite teams that won Super Bowls. Like, the number of elite skill players that were on those teams is very small. There's not elite Hall of Fame skill players that won Super Bowls. Like, it's good teams that protect their quarterback and have a guy like Tom Brady. Like, look at the number of Hall of Famers that Tom Brady played with. Now, some of them are going to be Hall of Famers because he played with them. But just in general, like number 1, number 2 receivers in the league or the best running backs in the league, those teams don't win Super Bowls. The teams that protect their quarterbacks and can move the ball down the field are the ones that win Super Bowls. And Tom Brady kind of laid the benchmark for that. Tom Brady should be the highest paid player in the NFL. Agree or disagree?
He should.
He should be. But he's not because he invested in the team and he knows that the team needs money left over to protect him, to protect their assets, to build a good defense, to build a good offensive line. And I think that's where Carson Palmer's coming from when he says to Dak Prescott, this is what you need to do. You need to invest in your team, not in yourself. And I know the window on the NFL is very limited and you want to maximize your money, but at the point when Dak Prescott signs this extension, he's going to have enough money to be set for life. His kids will be set for life. His grandkids will be set for life. That's off the table. Like you'll never need more money than what they're going to pay him. So if you want to be successful, and like Carson said, you want to get the endorsements, you want to win Super Bowls, and get the money that comes along with doing those things, you have to take a pay cut up front to make the money on the back end.
Okay, that's a.
It's a watertight argument. You can't even argue it, can you?
No, my thing is with that is like he said. Where's the guarantee that you're going to win Super Bowls? Where's the guarantee that you're going to get all these endorsements?
There's not. But to be successful, you have to have those other things. Otherwise, all of that's not even going to be an issue because your team's going to suck.
I don't discount what you're saying. I understand it. It's just. At what point, too, as a player, do you decide I need to get as much guaranteed as I can so that I don't, if I end up like an Andrew Luck and I'm just burnt out and I'm done by the time age 29, that I have as much money accumulated as I possibly can. I understand I understand the sentiment of where he's coming from, Carson Palmer. The messenger in this area, it's hypocritical. It is flat out hypocritical, and because of what he did in Cincinnati. And again, I understand why he did what he did, and I don't disagree with why he did what he did.
Yeah.
But to tell Dak Prescott that you need to take less money to help the team out. Remember, at one point in time, it was the 2007 season. Carson Palmer was the highest paid guy in football.
Yeah.
He wasn't taking a discount to help keep the other guys together. A different time. I understand that. Different time.
A lot less guaranteed money back then, too.
But I understand that. But still, he didn't have to take the contract to make himself the highest paid player. He signed like $115 million contract, something to that point. He could have taken $95, $100 million and say, pay my guys up front and keep them with me. But he didn't do that.
I agree.
He took the money with him. And so, again, the sentiment, I understand. To take 1/3 potentially of what his market value is laughable in that respect, because he wasn't going to do that. And just the messenger from that.
The messenger might be the wrong thing. That could very well be the issue.
That's the biggest thing that gets me is this guy, the way he got himself out of Cincinnati, is now telling another guy, you need to be a team player. It just, that doesn't jive. It doesn't jive with me.
I got you.
It doesn't jive with me. Okay. Now let's move more onto the field here. And by the way, send us your tweets and your Facebook posts and all that stuff. Let us know what you think of that. Do you agree with Carson Palmer that Dak Prescott should take less, or are you telling Dak, get your money, get yourself paid? So let us know that on social media, and drop a comment here on the video and let us know what you think as well. Now on the field, straightforward.
Yeah, enough drama off the field. Let's talk about actual football.
A bunch of teams started 0-1. I would say 16, but then the Lions and Cardinals had to dump out a tie.
So 14 teams at 0-1.
Correct.
2 teams with 0-1.
Who can't afford to start 0-2?
I think it's got to be Cleveland. I just brought up their schedule. Cleveland is staring down a very, very bad start if they can't get to 1-1 this week. At the Jets, which are actually not favored because the Jets came out and played pretty well week 1. Then they play the Rams. You got to chalk that one probably up as a loss because the Rams are pretty daggone good. You got to go to the Ravens, to the improved 49ers. The 49ers look good in week 1 against Tampa Bay.
It helps when you play punch face.
Helps when you play punch face. Then the Seahawks at the Patriots. And then their next winnable game on paper is probably at the Broncos. Cleveland, for all the hype that Cleveland had coming in this season, and I was on the bandwagon. I'm buying the hype. I think Cleveland was going to be a good team. Week 1, they laid an egg against a not very good Titans team at home. Just not impressive. And I think, again, all the hype surrounding Cleveland, and we talked about it last week that we thought that they could compete to win the AFC North, and certainly were a wild card team, potentially a wild card team. Man, week 1 was terrible for 43-13 against what we agreed was not a very good Titans team, or wasn't going to be a very good Titans team.
Outside of Derrick Henry, a very mediocre.
Yeah, a mediocre Titans team with Marcus Mariota under center. Just surprising, astonishing. With all the expectations that Cleveland had going into the season, I think that they really, really need to get to 1-1 this week. Because, again, we just went through the schedule. At the Jets, this is probably their weakest opponent. But they're on the road 3 of the next 4, at the Jets, home versus the Rams, at the Ravens, at the 49ers, home versus the Seahawks. Then they go to the Patriots.
Again, that's a brutal stretch.
To the Broncos. They have besides their first home game, they only have 2 home games in the next 6. So they're 2 of their next or 6. I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me do that again. Yeah, 2 of their.
You're right.
No, 2 of their next 7. So 5 out of their next 7 games are on the road. So they really need to get back to 1-1 before they play at home versus the Rams. It's again, all the expectations going into the season. I think 1-1 for them is the most important because of the way their schedule shapes up. Because if they don't get to 1-1, the winnable games for them are very slim the first half of the season. Now the first half of their season is more heavily loaded. The back end gets a little bit easier for them, but yeah, it's with the expectations. I think it's got to be Houston at 0-1 who has needs the biggest, Cleveland that needs the biggest boost this week.
I'm going to stay in the AFC North, and I'm going to move a little east, and I'm going to say it's the Pittsburgh Steelers needing to get to 500 because
after they got drugged too.
Well, it's. And not only everything leading into that, they cleared Antonio Brown away, got rid of him, so it's supposed to be a fresh start. Everybody can take a breath of fresh air. If I could say it, I almost said it backwards. A fresh of breath air. I almost said that.
Yeah, that's all right. It happens. So live radio here, folks.
But the way, everything everything was supposed to settle down, and they were going to get back to being the Pittsburgh Steelers that we all know, and some love and some loathe, and some people just don't care about. Mostly love or loathe. and to absolutely not show up. And after the game, Mike Tomlin said they were ready and we weren't. Which again,
how are you not ready? That's on Mike Tomlin.
That's on Mike Tomlin. Again, the most arrogant coach in football, in sport, actually, in my mind, and one of the most overrated for that reason. Kudos to him for facilitating getting rid of Antonio Brown. Now that we know everything that we know, right move for the locker room. But you lose 33-3. And your only score comes on a 21-yard field goal when you're down 20-0. So you, at that point, choose to take a 3-score lead, kick a field goal, and cut the deficit to, or 3-score deficit, kick a field goal, cut the lead to a 3-score deficit.
Yeah, 300 in total yards, 3 of 12 on third down. Not a good look for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, trying to kind of turn it around and start start over and. You come out and get 300 total yards against the Patriots and score 3 points. Kick a 21-yard field goal, train monkey range field goal.
Well, and to do it when you're down 20-0 in the third quarter instead of going for it on 4th and goal from the 3-yard line. Why would you not do that?
You kind of have to at that point.
But yeah,
the game was going.
So you have that. The way you don't show up. You don't want to fall behind 2 games behind Baltimore, who drug the Dolphins last week. Who the hell saw Lamar Jackson put up 59 points in the first week?
Yeah, Dolphins are not a very good football team.
No, Dolphins are tanking, and multiple players want out already.
Yeah, they're tanking in week 1, which is surprising. Now, the Ravens are a pretty good football team, but yeah, to not even show up week 1 is a little bit obvious that you're tanking for Tua.
And Baltimore goes home this week to play Arizona, who should not have a tie in their column. Detroit kind of
Detroit decided they didn't want to play the fourth quarter.
Yeah, had a 24-6 lead in the fourth and decided to
they just didn't want to play anymore.
Correct. So Baltimore gets Arizona at home. You have to think Baltimore is going to go to 2-0 there. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh goes home to take on a really good Seattle team who got, I think, way more than they wanted from the Bengals.
Yeah, they got away with one there in
that's one Cincinnati let go.
Oh, they missed a 45-yard field goal. And the end of the game, it ended up being a 1-point game, and they missed a 45-yard field goal earlier in the game.
And you also had 3 instances in the third quarter where the Bengals had the ball inside the Seattle 40 and came away with no points, including the field goal. You had the turnover, on downs, all that kind of stuff. So Seattle got lucky, but still, that's a good Seattle team coming to your house, coming to Heinz Field. If you don't get this game, you're 2 games behind 2 weeks into the season.
You're 0-2, and you're 2 games behind who look like the leader in the clubhouse now is the Ravens. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
So we'll see what happens, and let's get into the game this week again, as we like to do. Now that we're into the season again, we'll give you 3 games to watch out for, and these are all 0-1 matchups between 0-1 teams. So to our further point, to get back to get to 500 going forward, and it starts tonight on the NFL Network, the Punch Face Bowl.
Oh God!
Yeah. So I was
throwing it right out there. Thursday, the only game on TV. Could it be worse for fans than the only game on TV tonight? There's not even a college football game on tonight. We literally are only getting 2 of the biggest punch faces in the world on the field at the same time. The cameras are going to be focused on people that just make you irrationally angry and you want to just punch them in the face, for no other reason than they just look stupid. But here we go. We get them tonight. We get Tampa Bay at Carolina. Carolina's 7-point favorite.
I'm just gonna get out of the way and let you have your
thing.
Carolina's gonna win because
who's not gonna win?
Jameis Winston sucks, and Carolina did put up points against a good Rams D.
Yeah, but who's not gonna win?
Carolina wins.
The fans are losers.
America.
The fans are the losers in this one. America loses because we're forced to watch these 2 idiots play football against each other. We got the guy who eats his fingers pregame, doesn't know what he's doing, talking about, we're going to eat a W. By the way, worst pregame speech ever. Worst motivational speech. He's eating a W.
Would it be surprised if he's eating boogies?
Yeah, he probably is eating boogies and crab legs and all that other crap. Two pick sixes in week 1. Trash. Can't wait till he gets put on the bench. Bum. Bruce Arians comes in and makes him the starter again. Stupid. He was outplayed by Ryan Fitzmagic last year. I can't believe that he gets put right back in the starting role.
How about Fitzmagic setting an NFL record last week, though?
Yeah, eight different franchises, throwing a TD for 8 different franchises. Good for him. He acts as his own agent, by the way. But when you have a Harvard education, you can do that kind of stuff. And then we got the guy who looks like the kid who draws fashion, dresses him every week. Cam Newton's fashion sense is terrible, and I'm sorry if you think Cam Newton is a fashionable person.
You're not sorry.
No, if you think his fashion sense is fashionable, then you're an idiot. Because it looks like a kid drew his outfit, and then that's what he wears to the week. Like, he takes a drawing made out of crayon to a designer. He pays someone to dress him like that. Like, that's what's most disappointing. Someone gets paid to take a crayon drawing, turn it into an outfit, and give it to him so he can walk into a stadium. Like, he looked like Angus from AC/DC last week with this friggin' shorts suit that was way too friggin' tight. Like, I know you're a big dude and you're an athlete, but, like, get clothes that aren't skin tight on you. Like, I know tight is in right now, but it's not. I'm sorry. Tight. I can't wait till the tight clothes goes away. Everything's tight on me for a reason because I'm fat. It doesn't need to be made to be tight on you. It's just stupid. So the fans are the losers in this one because you got to watch two punch faces play against each other. Carolina wins the game, but it doesn't matter because if we're lucky, they both break their leg and are out for the season. We don't have to hear from them ever again. Here's some teams that are more fun to talk about, though.
Are they?
Are
they really?
They are. Jacksonville at 0-1, at Houston 0-1.
Well, Jacksonville is without the services now of
Big Dick Nick gets hurt in week 1. Great investment there. No, you can't predict it because Big Dick Nick ends up breaking his collarbone, unbeknownst to us. Like, unfortunately, this is football, and that's what happens.
But you do get now Gardner Minshew gets a start.
Who came in and looked pretty good in that game.
And he has a phenomenal mustache, and he's a product.
Yes, he does have a nice mustache.
He's a product of Mike Leach.
Yeah.
From Washington State.
Yeah, which means hopefully we get some more golden quotes from Mike Leach. Hopefully they win, so we just get some golden quotes from Mike Leach because they're going to ask him about it. And we on this show we love Mike Leach because he is a golden microphone for sports announcers because he's awesome on the mic.
So Gardner Minshew is going to get the start on the road going against Houston, who looked very good against the Saints. They looked very good.
But by the way, probably the most exciting last 2.5 minutes of football I've seen in a while.
Great sequence.
Like the great finish to that football game. And if you missed it, you missed out on a good one.
You touched on it earlier about Deshaun Watson and the fact that he continues to get beat up, and they made the trade for Laramie Tunsil. It didn't matter. He was
didn't help a lot.
He was sacked 6 times.
Didn't help a lot.
And he's
still got beat up.
And so he's going to face a very good Jacksonville pass rush.
Who hopefully is still motivated because, like we mentioned, if their offense stinks, they gave up on them last year.
They're going to quit.
Now Big Dick Nick is out, but we got Minshew coming in. But this is again. I thought about Jacksonville for a team, either team in this game for a team that 0-1 who can least afford to lose. One, because Jacksonville's defense will quit if their offense sucks, and Houston, who is a playoff team who can't protect their quarterback but still played really well in the dome against the Saints. It's a good start for them, and they got to build on that and get to 1-1. Again, one of these teams is going to be 0-2, and two potential playoff teams. One of them is going to be 0-2 and 2 games back in the division. So. I got Houston winning this one just because it's at Houston. But Jacksonville's defense getting after the quarterback, if they can cause
they're going to have to create some turnovers.
If they can cause turnovers, which they can, because Dak Prescott isn't great with ball security. He likes to carry the ball out wide because he's always looking to take off to run, so he doesn't have great ball security. And when you're running for your life, you obviously make mistakes. And Dak I almost said Prescott again. Watson. Watson can make mistakes when he's running for his life, so it'll be interesting to see. But I got Houston in this one.
Yeah, you don't know how Gardner Minshew is going to react. First start, it's on the road. He's got J.J. Watt coming to take his head off. They don't have Jadeveon Clowney anymore, he's still trying to find his way in Seattle. But he's got J.J. Watt that's going to be coming to rip his head off. And so we'll see. And does Jacksonville get anything out of Leonard Fournette? Because to me, it's a make-or-break year for Leonard Fournette. He is hurt. He's been hurt. But when he's been in there, he's been very inconsistent with his production.
Yeah.
Can you get something from Leonard Fournette here? I don't know that it matters. Again, Houston, a tough L last week. That's one of the better. If you're going to start 0-1,
if you can have a good loss, that was a good loss.
Exactly.
If there's such thing as a good loss, that was a good loss. Because,
exactly.
Again, playing well against a team who played in the NFC Championship last year on the road, it was a good game. Good game to watch and a good start to build on.
Well, If you want to check out a game between two teams who played in very bad games this week, check
not
out Monday
great.
Night Football.
Yeah.
The,
Dun, dun, dun.
the Cleveland Browns, who got dump trucked by Tennessee at home to start Week 1, and then the New York Jets, oh boy, it was brutal to watch, losing
16-0,
losing 17-16 to the Bills at home, and their kicker sucks, and now and we'll talk
We're
about
going to talk about how bad their kicker sucks here in just a second.
He sucks quite a bit because we'll talk about him in just a second. But as you said, can Cleveland get back on track? Because you think they're the team that can least afford an 0-2 start.
Well, they can. They like we mentioned, the Ravens are probably going to be 2-0, and if they're 0-2 in that division, it's going to be tough.
I'm going to say Cleveland gets the win here. I think Baker gets on track to get going now.
Yeah.
And the other thing here that kind of scared me from last week, looking at the Jets side of things, is it took Sam Darnold 41 attempts to throw for 175 yards. This is worse than Joe Flacco range. He averaged 4.2 yards per pass.
Yeah.
That's not going to get it done when Myles Garrett is coming for your face.
No, we know the Browns have a pretty good defensive line. Sam Darnold, probably not a franchise quarterback. We've talked about that in the past.
Why is Sam Darnold throwing the ball 41 times and you're only handing the ball to Le'Veon Bell 17 times?
Yeah,
don't give me that crap if
game
he's had a year off and he's not in football shape. That's garbage.
He should be in the best football shape of his life because he should be healthy, 100% healthy, fresh legs.
And
you can't get fresher legs than that.
Yeah.
You have to have Le'Veon Bell touching the ball more than 17 times out of the backfield, especially when Sam Darnold's your quarterback because he's not, again.
He's a second-year guy, and he's like a 20.
And he's out of USC, and USC quarterbacks aren't successful. They just aren't successful in the NFL. Unfortunately, it's a dying ground. When you come from USC to the NFL, you just aren't successful in the NFL. Now, to be fair, some of them get put in bad situations, like Sam Darnold is here in New York. But
and everybody was bragging about how Adam Gase was going to be the perfect guy to get Sam Darnold's career going, and he averages 4.2 yards per attempt.
Yeah, just poor game planning. Again, like you mentioned, hashtag not elite Joe Flacco range, where you throw everything underneath. Let's just throw checkdowns all day.
Hey, he's just entering his prime.
Just entering his prime. Yeah, good one with that, John Elway. Way to hitch your wagon to that dying duck. Stupid.
Does Cleveland win here?
Yeah, I think Cleveland wins here on the road. I don't trust the Jets' offense. Like, if you're only going to hand the ball to a guy who you paid a bunch of money, Le'Veon Bell gets the ball 17 times, and you're in a game you were winning, like you're winning the game, and Le'Veon Bell only has 17 carries.
Yeah,
you're up 16-0. Le'Veon Bell should have 40 carries when you're up 16-0. What are you doing? Sam Darnold throwing the ball 175 total yards, just stupid. Poor game planning.
41 tries.
41 passes in a game you're winning 16-0.
Okay.
Just stupid.
So there you go. Cleveland, Houston, and Carolina will all get to 1-1. We're unanimous on those. But Adam will make sure he's watching the Punch Face Bowl tonight.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to turn that one on.
Well,
I mean, I'll watch it because, again, it's the only game on in town. But terrible, terrible teams and terrible, ugly quarterbacks. Punch them in the face.
Well, speaking of guys you want to punch in the face, the Fumblegate fatty kicker of the week, and we've got a whole bevy of them, and I'm just gonna let you have at it.
Well, I mean, I only wrote down 4.
There were a lot.
There was a lot. Kennesaw State. I don't even remember his name. Kennesaw State kicker missed a chance to beat a Division I team. Kennesaw State loses to Kent State. Their kicker missed, I believe, from 42. He blew it. They lose in overtime to Kent State. Louisiana Monroe, Jacob Meeks. Now they're at Florida State, playing Florida State tight, winning the game in the fourth quarter. You actually texted me. This is a money game. They're getting a check to go there. But like Georgia State said, when you're going, you might as well win, right? He misses the extra point. They tie the game. They go to overtime, tied at 38. They both score touchdowns. Florida State scores theirs first. Louisiana Monroe scores theirs second. And then promptly, Jacob Meeks, the kicker, goes out and shanks his extra point. Game over. You lose. Foot of the kicker.
You could have gotten Willie Taggart fired. He's going to get fired.
Yeah, you could have got him fired in week 2, though. They could have started out 0-2. All you had to do was kick the extra point, go to the second overtime. Your offense is playing well, but you blew it. You missed the extra point. Miami's Bubba Baxa, great kicker name, by the way. Bubba Baxa misses from 26. 49 as time expires, and missed an extra point earlier in the game. They lose to North Carolina 25-28. Good start for Mac Brown, though. Mac Brown's 2-0 there down in North Carolina. But Yeah, Miami's Bubba Baxa misses 2 field goals and extra point. They lose by 3. The 49-yarder as time expired would have tied the game, put it in overtime.
Kudos, by the way, real quickly there. North Carolina fans have sold out every home game this season.
Good for them. I mean, it's something to be happy about for football. Like it's a basketball school.
It's a basketball school, and they make up classes for their athletes to take to stay eligible, especially in football. And they've been doing it for 25 years.
People writing papers for them
because it's North Carolina and they're a money school. That doesn't matter.
It just gets overlooked. And they get a slap on the wrist.
I'd be interested to see what the how the NCAA freaks out when California signs the new pay for play thing into law when it goes into law.
Yeah, they can't play for championships if they're getting paid. Well, guess what? You should be paying your athletes yourself, you dummies. Anyway, that's another discussion for another day.
What else we got?
Jets,
by the way, that's just college stuff.
Yeah, that's just college. We got 2 NFL kickers this week. Not even to mention the Bengals kicker.
Randy Bullock.
Randy Bullock misses from 45, and they end up losing by 1. Jets, Kare Vedovic, and I'm probably ruining that name.
What do you care?
Kare Vedovic, I don't care. He's a kicker. He misses from 45 and an extra point as the Bills come all the way back from 16 down 16-0. They win 17-16. They left 4 points on the table because Kare Vedovic missed from 45 and an extra point. Guess what? Kare Vedovic is now unemployed. You bum. Don't miss your kicks. You won't be unemployed. And your team would be 1-0 instead of 0-1. You bum. Stupid Jets. Anyway, this one, and again, 10,000 to 1. I didn't think you could ever predict that you would see this man on the list, let alone the winner.
Well, he did it once last year.
He did it once, but I don't think he was. Was he the winner that week?
I think he was.
Was he? Because he probably missed his time expired.
Yeah.
Anyways, the GOAT, Vinny, Adam Vinatieri, the GOAT for the brand, Pat McAfee and all, the GOAT, Vinny misses an extra point. Misses from 29, trained monkey range again, under 30, trained monkey range, and from 46. They end up going into overtime against the Chargers, and they lose in overtime. Chargers score a touchdown. They lose 30-24. Vinny leaves 7 points on the table in regulation. Extra point, trained monkey range field goal, and a 46-yarder, which he's made plenty of. He leaves 7 points on the table. Vinny misses all 3. They lose in overtime to the Chargers. Again, just astonishing. Like I told Jason yesterday. I said I hate to do it because he's the GOAT, but you have to. You can't ignore it. Like it doesn't matter how good you are.
You wanted to give this award to somebody else.
I did. I wanted to because Vinny's one of the few kickers I like. I mean, the guy's got a full head of gray hair. He's like 57 years old, still out there kicking, signing, re-upping contracts at 57, and just he did it. He won it.
He owned up to it after the game. Said, I cost us, but
he's a professional, and
does that mean anything to you on this with the award?
With my award, no. But in the locker room, that means a lot to the guys that are playing with him, and Vinny knows, and he's a professional, and all those other guys know. They all know that obviously you never intend to miss a kick. But
he doesn't play for the Dolphins.
He doesn't play for the Dolphins. But again, it's surprising but true. Adam Vinatieri, this week's winner of the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week.
Man, that's just,
it's a tough look, man.
Again, just and they made up for the extra point because they had to get a 2-point conversion with like 30 seconds left. They did get the 2-point
conversion, but again, you go to overtime, leaving 7 points on the board, and just
especially went from 29.
Yeah.
That's
the 29-yarder. I mean, the 29-yarder's inside of extra point range now.
That's trained monkey range.
Trained monkey range.
Okay, so Vinny, don't do it again because we really
Vinny,
don't want to do this.
I don't want to feature you, buddy. I know you're not watching the show, but for the brand, don't do it again, please.
Yeah,
don't.
Okay, let's go to college football and LSU. I think made the biggest waves this past week with a really nice win at Texas, and Joe Burrow,
very nice win.
After Ed Orgeron has brought in a new offense, turned the keys over to his new offensive coordinator and said, do what you want. It's turned Joe Burrow loose, and each of the first 2 weeks he's thrown for over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns in both games. That hadn't happened, by the way, for LSU since 2000.
Yeah.
That's the run of bad quarterbacks they've had over the years in Baton Rouge. But what a win for LSU. And now you start to look forward. This is going to be a bloodbath in the SEC West because you have Bama's Bama LSU seemingly has found an offense for the first time in 20 years.
They look pretty good.
And Auburn already has a good win under their belt, beating Oregon on a neutral field. This is going to be a bloodbath. And to me, you see the question on the screen. LSU is legit because nowadays with Alabama, with Tua, they're going to put points on the board. It's not going to be one of those like we saw a number of years ago, a 9-6 overtime game, which is that was one of the worst college football games I've ever seen. and I'm
not if you like defense.
But even it wasn't even about defense. It was a lot of
great.
offensive plays.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
They're a threat. They're a legit threat. The gap. They're there with Alabama. I think.
No, it's narrowing. I still don't think anybody's on the same page as Alabama on that side of the division. I think Georgia's the team that comes closest to competing with them. Here's the reason I don't think LSU is as close. Now, they did narrow the gap. I don't think they're as close as people tend to think. They gave up 530 yards.
Texas can move the ball.
Texas is going to move the ball, but guess who else can move the ball? Alabama. If we're talking about narrowing the gap, then you have to compete with Alabama in all facets of the game. And we know Alabama's special teams are suspect because they don't use them a lot. But the one thing that they are good at is offense, and the other thing that they're really good at is defense. And LSU was successful at both against Texas, or successful at offense against Texas, not so successful against on the defensive side of the ball. They allowed 530 yards in the game. There was a 2-touchdown comeback by Texas to close the gap. They were 20-7, I believe it was.
LSU was in control for most
of the game.
by the way.
Texas ends up coming back. And LSU really had to play a perfect second half for them to end up winning the game. Their quarterback, I believe, was 15 of 17 in the second half.
Yeah, Burrow was ridiculous.
15 of 17 for 200 and something yards in the second half, and he had to play that way for them to win the game. That's why I don't think it's as close of a gap as people think. Just because if you're going to say you're going to compete with Alabama, not that Texas is a slouch, but if you're going to say you're going to compete with Alabama, then your defense has got to show up better than giving up 530 yards. Because we know Alabama's offense is probably better than Texas's offense. Now, you did go to Texas, and you did beat them in Texas. Again, the gap has narrowed. But that half of the SEC is going to be a bloodbath with 4 ranked teams right now, and they're all in the top 20. Texas A&M, the lowest ranked team on that side at 16. That side of the division, the West, is going to be tough. Now, we know Georgia's coming out of the East because the only other ranked team on that side is the Gators, and the Gators,
Florida can't score,
and they're severely overrated at 9. Why they're in the top 10 blows my mind.
They've got a good defense. The offense just.
I mean, they beat Miami in week 1, but Miami's now 0-2. What's impressive about beating Miami? Now it's a rivalry game and all other crap, but Georgia's going to win that side of the division. The SEC West is going to be a little bit tougher, and again. Alabama LSU playing well just makes it tougher on Alabama, which is why I think from year to year we find out why the team from the SEC always ends up in the playoff, and why 2 of them sometimes end up in the playoff, just because we know the SEC is really, really talented.
Shout out to Nick Saban, by the way, for bitching about another noon kickoff this week.
He just has to find things to complain about because what else is he going to
do? To that point, Nick, play somebody in your non-conference. You know, I saw this as an interesting said. You know how many non-conference road games Nick Saban has played since he's been in Alabama?
1.
2.
I was going to say the numbers. If you gave me an over/under of 3, I would have said under. So
play somebody in your non-conference, and then you won't have to bitch about it.
Yeah. You don't have to play at noon.
It's noon. It's hot in my players.
Well. Guess what?
You've got
go play a game worthy of playing in prime time, and you can play at 7 o'clock.
35 kids who are going to play professionally at some point or another.
Go play somebody who's worthy of a prime time opponent, and you can play at 9 o'clock when the sun's down, and it won't be so hot.
Well, it was
sleep in the morning.
It was a night game down in Austin as LSU won, and it was hot down there. And by the way, a shame on you, Texas, for giving LSU 3,000 seats for their abandoned fans and sticking them up in the top corner of the stadium.
That's commonplace in college football.
And also, piss on you, Texas, for filing a complaint after the game because LSU players did the horns down. We don't like that.
No, that's just
grow up, Tom Herman, you freaking baby.
No, but putting the fans up in the corners.
And then also, LSU brought some extra equipment with them because they were tipped off by Louisiana Tech, who had played Texas before that. You're not going to have air conditioning in your locker room. Now, Texas has denied that, but why would Louisiana Tech go out of their way to call LSU and say, hey, It's going to be hot.
Bring some fans.
It's going to be hot as hell in that visiting locker room. Number one, the question is, do you believe this? I 100% believe this.
100% believe
it. Is bull. It is Bush League. And again, Tom Herman, grow the hell up.
Yeah.
This is offensive. You don't get air conditioning. We're going to make it hot for you.
Yeah, it is Bush League. It's 100% Bush League, a Division I level, and these are highly trained athletes. And again,
it's a $200 million program in Texas.
Turn the air conditioning on. Like, it's just stupid because there's air conditioning in there.
Yeah,
because other teams, when high school teams play in the stadium or whatever, because Texas isn't the only people that play in a $200 million stadium. Like,
it is a $200 million stadium, and you think you're going to screw with your opponents by not giving them air conditioning?
No, I will say that kind of stuff happens all the time in college football, and you hear the stories of the Iowa pink locker room and all the other stuff. That kind of stuff happens all the time. The no air conditioning thing is stupid.
That's a health hazard.
Well, yeah. I mean, imagine if some kid overheated in the locker room, then you're on the hook. It is dumb.
Could you imagine being, when you were at your playing weight, a three bills plus, going into a locker room like this in this kind of environment?
Yeah, in a $200 million stadium. Now, I will say in the MAC, we have plenty of locker rooms in the MAC that were
you're also not playing in the heat of Texas.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, it obviously has been hot these last couple of weeks, and we had plenty of road games. We played at Michigan State, a very, very hot locker room, very hot environment. We played there week 1 of the season, and it was very hot. But yeah, to a $200 million stadium and something that's invested that much, and that there's air conditioning in there, not turning it on is just Bush League. And again, in the MAC, we played at stadiums where there probably wasn't air conditioning in those locker rooms. But if there was, we obviously always had it cranked down as low as it would go. We'd walk in and downright chilly before the walkthrough. Now before a game, not the same, but. Yeah, it's stupid. It's dumb. It's trivial. Like, if you want to mess with the team, do it some other way. Get a fan to call the fire alarm the night before the game or something if you're going to mess with them that way. Like, don't turn off their air conditioning when it's 95 degrees down in Texas. That's just stupid.
That's a felony. We're not encouraging that here.
Yeah, I'm not encouraging that. Don't call in a fire alarm. No bomb threats either. Don't do that.
Don't even go there.
Don't do that.
Don't even go there. All right. So, yes, Tom Herman, grow up.
That's silly.
That's the biggest thing going forward.
I do like some of the stuff that teams do to mess with visiting teams.
The pink locker room thing in Iowa was great. That's hilarious.
When you play at Michigan, or at least when we played at Michigan, their visiting locker room, everything is oversized, which I thought was awesome because I'm an oversized person. But all the stools are taller, all the lockers are bigger, and the idea is to make you think, oh, wait, how big are these guys? Like, why is all this stuff so big?
So you got like the kickers just like waving their legs.
Yeah, like our running back Jerry Seymour at the time, like waving his legs, trying to touch the bottom rung of his stool because he was 5'3".
That's funny.
Michigan State, their bathroom had no walls in it, which is kind of
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, no walls in the bathroom, just a bunch of toilets. Just a big box with a bunch of toilets, no walls. First time we played there, we weren't prepared for it. Second time, we brought whiteboards to put up in between to kind of create stalls. But
that's funny.
In the MAC, some locker rooms you get a pegboard to hang your stuff on. You don't even get a locker room just because the MAC just doesn't have that kind of investment. That's the way it was at Central when I was there. Our visiting locker room was a bunch of pegs on the wall. Like, you didn't have a locker. You just had, like, similar to a high school locker room. Like, if any of you guys played college or high school football and you remember going to visiting locker rooms and there was just a couple benches and a concrete floor, that's what our visiting locker room was like at Central until they recently ripped it down. They're making a huge investment in the Champion Center there in the end zone now. So I imagine the visiting locker rooms are going to get a little nicer. But in the MAC, you saw stuff like that a lot. But at a $200 million facility like Texas, it's trivial. It's stupid. And again, it's a liability. Like, if a kid overheated in that locker room and unfortunately something really bad happened, if he had to be rushed to the hospital or God forbid, someone died because of that.
That would be the end of Texas football.
You would lose your stadium over something so trivial as trying to play mental games with a team like LSU. Like, you're not doing this against a team who doesn't have the power to fight back against you if something happens. You know what I mean? Like, it's just it's silly. It's dumb.
Yeah.
It's trivial. There's no point to it. There's no point.
Speaking of silly, dumb, and trivial, and no point to it, the Michigan Wolverines still continue to employ Jim Harbaugh. And we said it last week.
National
folks,
championship contenders.
We told you last week, folks, watch out for Army. This was going to be a ball game the entire way, and it was. And it wound up having to go to double overtime. Michigan wound up winning in double overtime because they forced Army to pass, and when Army usually has to pass, it's never good news.
Well, they didn't force him to pass. He still only threw 5 passes.
Well, it was the situation called for a pass in the double overtime.
In overtime, yeah.
The situation and
Michigan. Now, the first pass where he threw the interception on the goal line.
Yeah, that was
poorly executed.
That was dookie.
That was essentially at the time, and now looking back at it for sure, that was to win the game. If Army scores that touchdown and they're up 21-7 against Michigan, they win the game. Like, Michigan does not come back from that. And Michigan does not have the offense to come back from a 14-point deficit. They don't.
I respect you for not including Army's kicker in the kick.
I can't because he's a military kid and he's fighting he's going to fight for our country one day. He's going to put his life on his line for all of us.
Yes. And I'm talking about football aside because it was his first collegiate kick. And it was
ever
from 50.
From 50.
And he had the distance.
I know. It looked to be a little bit short. The angle wasn't great. A little bit short, a little right.
But it was wide.
He put a good leg on it. And unfortunately, Navy doesn't run a very good 2-minute drill because of the nature of their offense. No offense to
Army.
Army. I'm sorry.
Navy's the same way.
Yeah, same way. Army doesn't have a very good 2-minute offense because
they don't have a 2-minute
triple option offense.
It's a 12-minute offense.
Yeah.
It's a 2-quarter offense.
Yeah, so they didn't have the opportunity to put the kid in a better spot. But yeah, I almost mentioned it, but then the kid's gonna put his life on the line. First collegiate kick from 50. A kid who is probably better at pulling a trigger than kicking a football. I can't be upset about that. But he gave himself a shot. But again, early in that game, 21. It could have been 21-7. They threw the interception on the goal line. I believe first and goal from the 7. Throws the interception. Now I understand what they were trying to do, trying to catch Michigan off guard by throwing the ball. But like we mentioned, Michigan is not a national championship contender. They are not competing for the college football playoff. Like. Army is a unique situation because of the fact that their offense is different. Now, they didn't control the ball as much as I thought. I thought the possession would be like 2/3 to 1/3. Army only had the ball for 2 extra minutes longer than Michigan.
Michigan was very patient with their offense,
Michigan was patient with their offense. But here's what we did learn about Michigan. Their offense ain't very good.
They're still adjusting.
They're adjusting a schmushting. Who cares?
They're adjusting.
Shea Patterson has been the starting quarterback for 2 years. The only thing that's unique to their offense is they have a true freshman running back in Charbonnet.
Who needed 33 carries to get
100 yards. They only had 108 total yards of rushing. Now, credit to Army because Army's tough, physical, and they're going to punch you in the mouth, and we saw that. But you got to remember, these guys have weight limits. They can only weigh so much. Like, their Michigan's offensive line versus Army's defense outweigh them to a man by probably 100 pounds.
That was the stunner.
It's insane.
That was the stunner for me in this game. Not that the result and the fact that it was a tight game all the way, and even that Michigan had to go to double overtime to win. It was how much Michigan's offensive line was dominated by Army's defense. Now I know they brought some things. They had some corner blitzes, safety blitz, and whatnot. But when it was just
other
in
teams
the trench,
do that too.
But when it was in the trenches, 5 offensive linemen against 4 defensive linemen. Army had that battle won the entire afternoon.
Like how many times did Michigan get stopped on 3rd and 1, 4th and 4th
exactly?
And 1? Like Army's defense was getting off the field by stopping them in
you're trying to tell
and 1 situations and 2 situations. Like it was unbelievable.
Army is not a national championship contender, and you're going to try and tell me number one that Michigan is, and now you're going to tell me that this offensive line is going to handle Chase Young when he brings when they take on the Buckeyes.
I don't know how they're going to handle Michigan State's defensive line. Like, Michigan State's defensive line is really, really good.
Yeah.
Like, again, they held Tulsa to
minus 73.
Minus 73 rushing yards. Like, they're really good.
Yes.
And you had 108 yards rushing against Army, against a team that you outweigh by 100 pounds to the man.
Yeah.
Like, you had 340 total yards of offense. Shea Patterson, 19 completions for 200 yards. Like, that's impressive. Like, he's a dark horse Heisman candidate. I'm sorry. No.
And this is a spread offense now. And you throw for 200 yards.
Like, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to spread them out, run the ball efficiently. 3 yards per carry out of Charbonnet. Now, he's a true freshman running back.
Well, it also
3 yards per carry?
It also helps.
Come on.
It hurts him, Charbonnet, when you're running the spread offense. When you run the read option almost every play and your quarterback ardently refuses to tuck it himself and take it.
He's not a good enough athlete.
Well,
he
I
can't
understand that.
Take it off the edge.
But as a defense, why would you respect that? Why wouldn't you just crash down on your tailback?
Yeah. Well, which is what they're going to do, and they're going to run. I mean, we run a similar offense.
I'm not saying
at high school though.
You don't have to be a great athlete, but you at least have to show the other team that the threat is there.
Yeah, you have to keep them honest.
And Patterson handed it off every time. So why would you believe it?
Yeah.
that he's going to tuck and run.
And he's not even good at carrying out play fakes. Like
No.
what's going to happen is they're going to face defensive ends, the Lewerke kid from Michigan State, who's good enough to read both. And he's going to give you a bastardized read, and he's going to run straight at the quarterback, which is, by the way, for all you defensive coordinators out there, how you defeat the read option, or what we're calling like the zone read option. You run straight at the quarterback. The backside defensive end that's not blocked, you run straight at the quarterback, and then you redirect based on who gets the ball. He's going to face guys who are good enough to do both. And he's never going to pull it, and they're just going to get tackles for loss. Yeah. And I looked it up because I knew Michigan wasn't good on third down. They were 9 of 16 on third down, but 3 of them ended up in fourth down, and they were 1 of 3 on fourth down. Like Navy, or again, I keep saying Navy. Army again did a great job of getting into their backfield, disrupting their offense. 340 total yards of offense is not efficient. That's not a good day for Michigan for a team you claim to be a national contender. It's not happening. Sorry, Michigan Wolverine fans, you're not a national championship contender, particularly after we see their performance against Army. They're going to go to Wisconsin this weekend, who, by the way, drugged my Chippewas. 600 yards of total offense to, what was it, 78 or something? Chippewas under 100 yards.
Yeah, thankfully they took Jonathan Taylor out. Otherwise, Jim McElwain's quote would have came true. They would have made him a Heisman contender.
Oh, my God. It was, 49-0 at halftime or something silly like that.
He didn't really
Chippewas, play not a good look for my Chips. They lost starting quarterback, lost a starting running back, lost a starting defensive end all in that game. Jonathan Ward had 1 carry out of the game. Normandy, I think, played the first half, and then he came out of the game, both with significant injuries. Not a good look for the Chips. Chips got that $1 million check, but did not put up a fight against the Wisconsin Badgers up there in Madison.
Get well, Terry Wilson, by the way.
Yeah, Terry Wilson.
Nice job, Emu, with the horse collar tackle to tear his patellar tendon. Kind of gross.
Way to go, Emu. Shout out to the Hurons.
Well, I especially feel bad for him, too, because he can't redshirt.
Yeah.
So next year he can't redshirt this year. He's done. Next year is his final year.
Well, anyway, he doesn't have a medical.
He redshirted a year at Oregon, so you can't.
But not medically.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So next year is it? They knew it was going to be a 3-for-3 type of thing for him. So anyway,
that's unfortunate.
And Kentucky's got a tough one this week with Florida coming in. Sawyer Smith, the senior grad transfer from Troy, he's got a big arm, but it changes their offense because
it does change their offense because he can't run. Yeah, he can't run. Like
Lynn Bowden's going to wear Terry Wilson's number this week. Anyway, back to Michigan here before we get to our upset picks of the week and wrap up here today.
Yeah, at Wisconsin this week, they're going up to Madison, and I think that's a big L.
An L.
I think the Badgers are going to jump around. And I'm sorry, they don't go this week. They got a week off after that tough Army loss. They get a week off, or Army win. After the tough Army win, they get a week off, and then they got to go to Madison.
You don't think maybe Wisconsin was saving Taylor against Chippewas, building a big lead, and sit him?
You could have saved the entire team. You could have played your true freshman and saved all their red shirts by playing them in week 2, and they still probably would have beat the Chippewas. Yeah, Chippewas didn't have a good look up there in Madison. Tough one for them.
They got a check, though.
Yeah, they got a check, and they're home favorite this week against the Zips, who debuted the turnover pencil last week.
The hell?
Yeah, turnover. I just
is it like an oversized blown up pencil?
It is an oversized blown up pencil. There is a story behind it. I haven't read it yet, but apparently the story is pretty endearing. But the turnover pencil for the Akron Zips debuted last week. I should have read it because I could have more information.
Give us highlights of Michigan's schedule here.
Michigan going to Madison this week. Rutgers, that's going to be a win, but then they got to play Iowa, who's looking pretty good so far, at Penn State versus Notre Dame, at Maryland, much improved Maryland team. Like, Maryland looks pretty good right now.
Dump truck, Syracuse.
Dump truck. Like, I almost picked that game because of Maryland's performance in week 1.
Well, I thought about it too, but Maryland was favored by 2.
Maryland was favored by 2, and Syracuse didn't look bad the week before, but good Lord, Maryland looks pretty good right now.
Damn.
And they got to go to Maryland, and they got Michigan State, and they got OSU. Now, credit to the Big Ten for having all these teams ranked. Now, do I think that they are ranked if they play SEC schools? No. But they all have the potential.
Ohio State and Michigan State would be.
Ohio State and Michigan State would be.
Wisconsin probably.
Wisconsin, the way they looked in the first 2 weeks, they might be too. Like, Wisconsin looks pretty good. Penn State hasn't looked bad yet either. Notre Dame.
Michigan would be fighting for 4th in the SEC East.
Michigan
not the West, the East.
Like, I got to count Wisconsin as a loss in 2 weeks. Iowa's going to be a tough one for them. Penn State, probably a loss. Notre Dame, probably a loss. Maryland's going to be a tough one. It's at Maryland. There's a potential for a loss there.
Yep.
And against Michigan State, if their offense doesn't improve right now they usually get stronger as the week goes on. But
that'll be a first team to 20 points wins, because that's how it always is.
That game could lose. Yep. And then Ohio State right now, that's a loss. Like they're losing to Ohio State. They have the potential for 5 losses on their schedule. They're looking at a 7-5 schedule. Like best case scenario right now for Michigan, my best case scenario is they're 9-3.
Yeah.
Best case scenario. And they have the same odds to make the college football playoff as Ohio State. Sorry, odds makers. You made a bunch of money off some stupid Michigan fans. Now I know there's a bunch of them out there that bet that. But you made a lot of money off some Michigan fans that thought at 10-1 that 10-1 that they were a good odd to make the college football playoff because they're staring down a 9-3 season and they're going to play you're going to play in the Outback Bowl against a mid-level SEC team and compete with a mid-level SEC team. But you're not a national championship contender. You're not even a Big Ten contender. Like your chances of playing in the Big Ten championship are really low. Like, sorry, Michigan fans, you're not there yet. Like you think, oh, this is our year, and we got all the chips on the table and all that. No, it's not your year. Sorry.
I'm
Jim
waiting.
Harbaugh, not your year. Sorry, bud.
I'm waiting for Michigan to petition to be moved to the Big Ten West.
They're going to have to because that's where
so that they don't play Michigan State, Ohio State, and Penn State every single year.
But they're not getting rid of the rivalries. They're not. Like,
I know.
If you
I
move them
understand.
over there,
I understand.
What's the rivalry?
I understand it. You would keep Ohio State because it's Ohio State.
Well, you have to keep Michigan State and Ohio State. You have to keep both of them. You don't Michigan State.
As far as a national perspective goes, Michigan's rival is Ohio State.
100%.
I get it because
Michigan State has to be a game that's played every year.
I don't
You have to
disagree. I'm
play
just
that
saying
game.
from a national perspective,
Yeah.
a money game, you would think if you put that game and put it in prime time every year.
Well, that's why it's the last game of the
then-
season every year because that's what it is. But the Michigan State game is every bit as big of a
That's what I'm
rivalry
saying.
for the kids in the locker room and the state of Michigan. It's every bit as big of a rivalry.
But how cool would it be if they move Michigan to the West? Because I could see Harbaugh doing it because he's a dummy. But you keep the game in the same spot. You could theoretically have a position where Michigan and Ohio State play each other 2 weeks in a row.
But that would mean that Michigan has to win their half of the division. And right now, the way
The West Division sucks.
I don't know about that right now because
Iowa,
and Wisconsin's really good. Like Wisconsin's really good so far. Now
I'm not saying they're good, but they got a hell of a lot better of a chance than winning the East.
100%. Like they got a better chance of winning the East than they do the West. But the West than the East.
Lastly,
Anyway.
let's move on. We can dedicate a whole show to the idiocy of Jim Harbaugh. Lastly, before we get out of here, as we did last week, give you the upset picks of the week.
God, I can't believe I got that one wrong. I really thought the Bobcats were gonna have a better showing.
They were in it.
They were in it, but
I got the Colorado one right over Nebraska. That was a great football game.
Great football game and a great call
football
by you.
Go back and watch that one. Find a replay. That was a phenomenal football game in general.
Yeah, it was a good game
I didn't
to
even
watch.
care if I got that one right or wrong. That was just a great football game to watch.
Yeah.
So now, upset picks of the week this week. Not a lot of great games this week.
There aren't a lot of great games, and I go, being a Matt guy, I go off the board a little bit. I don't like picking ranked teams. It's just not as fun. Although, again, the Maryland-Syracuse one, I thought maybe, going with Maryland, but it wasn't really an upset because Maryland was getting points, or giving points. But anyway, I got the Dukies going to Middle Tennessee State. I got our
fighting Mike Polly's?
Yeah, the fighting Mike Polly's. Coach Mike Polly. Dukies coming to town. Middle Tennessee State played well with Michigan, and we know Michigan's not as good as we thought they were. But a school like Middle Tennessee State, who isn't even supposed to compete with them, goes up to the big house and plays well against them. Have a pretty prolific offense. They got a sophomore quarterback who is 292 yards per game, throwing for 292 yards a game. And the Dukies are coming to town. They're the favorite right now. Middle Tennessee State, I think, is getting 3.5 or something like that. Ooh. I got and I'm not a huge
Raiders.
upset. I got the Blue Raiders.
Yeah.
I got Dukies coming to see the Blue Raiders and the fighting Mike Polly's winning that one over Duke, beating an ACC opponent to kind of kick off their season, getting into the conference play.
Mike Polly, offensive line coach at Middle Tennessee State, former guest here on the show. Go back on the YouTube channel, and we actually had an interview with him a year ago. He was able to kind of give us the ins and outs of college recruiting, how all that stuff works. It was some really good insight.
He was a good guest. He's a nice guy, and you knew him prior, obviously, and I've only met him through there. Also, a good follow on the Twitter. Follow him at Coach Mike Polly.
He's all about the wrestling.
Yeah, he's got
the WWE,
a lot of wrestling memes,
the wrestling memes,
comparisons. But he's fun. He's a fun follow on social media.
Great guy. I've known him for a long time. Great guy.
Yeah.
And obviously doing a very good job.
They got a good thing going down there. They got a pretty good deal, and it's a smaller school. A school a lot of people.
He will be a head coach somewhere.
Yeah, he's a smart football guy.
Yeah,
he is a very smart football guy.
Okay, so the Blue Raiders take down the Dukies. Anytime Duke loses in any sport, Fine
Yeah,
by me.
big,
Fine
big
by
for
me.
the Kentucky guy over here. He's a big fan of that.
Fine by me. They could lose in anything, and it'll be good. I'm going to give you a different upset here, and I will actually say a ranked team goes down. And it's going to be the Fighting Mike Leaches. They're going to go down. They're going. They're tomorrow night, Friday night.
That one.
They're at Houston. They're playing where the Texans play. So it's technically a neutral site game, but it's in Houston. I like the Cougs to take this one over Washington State. There's going to be a ton of points scored in the game, but a long road trip. It's a Friday night type of game in Houston. I like Dana Holgorsen to start to get things going down there, and so I have Houston knocking off 20th ranked Washington State. And that's tomorrow. That's tomorrow night. So
yeah, it's a Friday night game. We'll be playing our game, so I'll miss that.
You'll be calling a game. You'll be coaching a game. I'll be broadcasting a game, so we won't get to see it live.
You got the Loveland Tigers. Who are they losing to this week?
They're taking on Milford this week.
Oh,
so
yeah, that's going to be another drubbing. They might give up 50 in that one.
They'll try and not lose 50-20 for the third week in a row.
They probably will.
Hopefully it doesn't happen.
Milford's pretty good.
That's going to be tough.
Milford's going to be a tough show.
We'll see what happens, and it's going to be 95 degrees, and it's going to be hot and miserable. And
you at Loveland or you at Milford?
It doesn't matter. It's outside, so it's 95 degrees. It's at Milford, but
why you got to be outside? They have a visiting box at Milford.
We'll see. It's still going to be hot.
Yeah, there's the air conditioning though. I turn it on.
Okay. So
Milford's got an air conditioning.
So Milford has air conditioning. Oh, great job, Tom Herman.
Yeah, Milford has air conditioning in their visiting press box.
Ass clown.
Whereas Tom Herman won't even put it in the visiting locker room.
Yeah, so they can drink a little bit of the bubbly. Again, shout out Chris Jericho.
The walls of Jericho.
Exactly. That's the new one on the Twitter. A little bit of the bubbly.
I like it. I like Chris Jericho. Way back to Y2J.
That's right.
That was a good one. I like the Y2J back in the WCW days.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're going way back here.
Oh,
long illustrious career.
I started with WCW. I started with WCW, not WWF.
Yeah.
Now the WWE.
It's a
WCW with Goldberg. That was my introduction to wrestling.
It's a whole thing now after he won the new AEW All Elite Wrestling Championship. He celebrated in the locker room, and it's turned into a huge thing. Go follow his Twitter at I am Jericho. It's hilarious. All the videos people have come up with.
He's pretty good.
Great follow. So anyway, follow us on Twitter, by the way. I'm at Jason Grefer. You can follow the show at Fumblegate.
I'm at Fumblegate Fatty, and
That's pretty straightforward.
I like to fashion myself as someone who's funny, but sometimes I'm not. I'm big on the Chris Farley gifs.
Yeah,
GIFs.
the gifs.
I'm a big Chris Farley guy. I like those. They fit a lot of the occasions. But yeah,
fellow fat guy.
Yeah, fellow fat guy, and a hilarious one at that. Now I'm not hilarious, but he's a pretty funny fat guy. So I try to use him to make myself look funnier.
Well, tune in next week, and we'll see if we get this fat guy in a little coat.
No, not doing it. I'm not Cam Newton. I wear clothes that fit me and are a little baggy.
Enjoy the Punch Face Bowl tonight. He will.
I'm going to just stare at my screen angrily while I drink.
Do that while you're watching us, too, and continue to watch the replays here and all that kind of stuff. Bye-bye. You've been watching Fumblegate on YouTube.
Stop dressing up like a child made your clothes for you, Cam Newton, you bum!